Hey, Diana, did you know that 3 simple words can change your life?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
All right, welcome to the Successful Barrister Podcast, the podcast for lawyers about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I'm here today with my extremely talented co-host, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's going on?
Hey, not much. We're reading a book.
Yes, we are. So, want to talk about the problem that we're going to address today. The problem that law firm owners, entrepreneurs out there, even leaders of teams within law firms have all the time. How do we get all the things that we need to do? How do we get it done? Mm-hmm. You know, if you think about it, like we've talked in a previous episode about the flywheel, you know, all the things that as an owner of a law firm that I need to have accomplished. I need to manage the firm. I need to market the firm. I need to develop an intake process so we can sign up the cases that we're looking for. We need to develop legal teams that can actually perform the work. You know, we needed to maintain the relationship with our clients even after the representation so they will in turn refer us business. I mean, this whole flywheel that law firm owners have to do, all of these things that we have to make sure that are accomplished, how do we actually do it? And the answer that I have learned over my 30-some years in the industry, it's not how do we do it, it's who do we get to do it.
Yep, and so this was the book. So we had to read this because Atticus assigned it to us. And so
what are we reading?
Who Not How, The Formula to Achieve Bigger Goals Through Accelerating Teamwork, written in 2020 by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. Gonna be honest, the concept didn't really land with me. We can talk a little bit more about that later, but that's the concept, right? Don't get stuck on the how, figure out who the who is. And so we were talking about this before we were getting ready for the podcast to record this, and you told a funny story.
So the story that I related, this was the classic who, not how. So 25 years ago, for those of you who were even born back then, you know, that's when the internet was first starting to kick off.
The Netscape days.
The Netscape days. Most people don't even remember what Netscape is, but I remember. And I decided I needed a website. So what did I do? I ordered a book about how to build your own website.
So you're a practicing lawyer.
Yes.
25 years ago, you're a new attorney, right? 4 year, 5 years.
I probably was a 4 or 5 year attorney at that point.
And you decided the best use of your time was to learn how to build a website.
So I ordered this book, and it was all about Netscape and other ways of creating a website. This was, I think WordPress wasn't even a thing back then, which is now sort of the standard for building websites. Mm-hmm. And it talked about all of this coding and programming and all this stuff. And it was this thick book. It was like 2 or 3 inches thick. And I was serious. I was literally going to read this book and learn how, as a practicing lawyer, I was going to learn how to build a website. And I spent about 2 weeks screwing with this. And it just all of a sudden hit me, why the hell am I trying to do this? I just need to hire somebody to do this for me. And that was sort of my first epiphany in the who, not how concept. Mm-hmm. Looking back on it now, it's just ridiculous, the thought that I actually thought that I could go and learn how to code, learn how to build a website. For what? I mean, I would have spent hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Yeah.
There weren't the number of website vendors that there are now. I mean, now they're falling out of trees. But back then, it was a little bit more of a rare thing. You had to actually think about it a little bit. But that's exactly what I did. And you know how the funny thing, that's how it dates me so much. I found my first web vendor, my first webmaster that put together our website through my Yellow Page sales rep.
You mean the physical thing, the book?
The physical Yellow Pages.
Not the website, like, literally you found okay.
Yes, the literal Yellow Page sales representative that used to come to my office all the time and repeatedly sell me ads in the Yellow Pages and, the 15 suburban Yellow Page books. He knew. It was funny. The Yellow Page people were kind of the first people that actually realized that they were going extinct.
Oh, okay.
And so they started their own division on building websites. What they called it was the online Yellow Pages. But really what it was is they realized what the future held. So anyway, that's my oldest memory of the revelation of who, not how. But then over time, it's sort of taken on a life of its own.
Well, and you've kind of glossed over one of the main points in the book, which was that you had to kind of change your mindset.
Absolutely.
It was a major, really shift in mentality to let this baby go. So you obviously were savvy enough to recognize that you needed a website. So that's, hey, great entrepreneur for you. But then to turn over the whole creation of your, what now we would call your digital presence to someone else, that's a mindset shift.
Yeah, it was really kind of dumbfounding that I actually thought that I could build a website.
A little bit. I'm not gonna. You said it. I didn't.
Now I will say this: I did take programming in college, so I thought.
So now you're
knew
a programmer,
a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Back then I thought I could do everything. I was afflicted with a great amount of confidence and a real lack of knowledge about a lot of things, which is a dangerous combination.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving forward, and I repeatedly run into this over my career, is I will get stuck on the how. Mm-hmm. I can think of numerous examples. How do I prepare back in the days when we used to do the bankruptcy forms? How do I prepare the bankruptcy forms? And back, a long time ago, you used to buy carbon paper, and they were pre-printed bankruptcy forms, and you would type your client's information on the pre-printed carbon contracts and documents, and then everything was done in triplicate because you had little carbon papers behind it. Now I'm really dating myself because people.
Yeah, you've lost me. You had Yellow Pages. Now you're talking about carbon copies.
I know.
But you shifted your mindset to even think that, hey, maybe not me.
Maybe not me. And so out of that, the who, not how. Number one, I hired a paralegal.
Okay.
That actually had some experience in bankruptcy work. And that paralegal says, there's this computer program, this word processing program that actually will do this for us. Mm-hmm. So again, who, not how. I found a person who actually had some experience in this area that solved the problem.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's part of it, right? Is just being able to accept, just change your mind and think, hey, it's not going to, even though the firm is my baby, this project doesn't have to be my baby. And then he said, I think the other thing that's really big in the book, what Sullivan and Hardy say, you just said it, the confidence. You had a whole lot of confidence, a little bit of knowledge, but a whole lot of confidence. And so I think that that's another key part to being successful in this concept that didn't land with me, was you have to have the confidence to go find somebody else.
Well, it's sort of a yin and a yang here. Is you have to have the confidence to delegate, but then you have to have the humility. Mm-hmm. You have to check your ego at the door.
Yes.
To realize that I don't know everything, I can't do everything. So Henry Ford once said, the key to success is being the dumbest person in the room. Mm. And what he meant by that was he hired good people. He hired good engineers. He hired good production line people who knew how to put up a production line. He hired great marketing people, and he surrounded himself with all of these really, really smart people. That's the classic who, not how. Henry didn't come up with the production line. Somebody else came up with the production line. He's just the one who hired that person to do it for him.
And we're going to talk more in the next segment about how we actually do this, how we apply this concept in in our law firm today.
Yes, I can think of a lot of examples of how this has happened, but it's been an evolution. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't like just the light switched on and said, who, not how, let's apply that concept across the board. We talked about that in other episodes about the concept of killing the hero. And it took a long time to kill the hero in the firm. I had to kill myself off slowly. And it's the same thing. I had to learn the who, not how, kind of slowly over time. But to the point now where my job is to point.
Yes,
my most valuable asset in the firm is my index finger, because I point at people. You do this, and you do this, and you do this, and then report back to me when you're done. So anyway, we're going to discuss this concept a little bit more after the break. Talking more about who, not how.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting, and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
All right, so Diana, we talked about the term fractional. What exactly is that in your mind?
Part-time. So it's really, but it's almost like you said, though, you get to kind of try someone out before you hire them. So it's kind of dipping your toe into the who, not how idea. So like we've had a couple of people, actually, no, this is our first fractional CFO that we've actually brought on to help us out with some things. We've interviewed quite a few and just couldn't quite commit to them, but we realized, again, mindset shift, that we needed somebody else, something. We had a gap in our knowledge within the firm to help us get to that next level of to understand our financials. And so we hired a fractional CFO. So basically a part-time CFO, just someone who has other clients or other, if you would, bosses, if you will, to help them as well in other industries. It's good to know or have someone who has experience with other law firms so they can draw parallels a lot more easily when we say things like contingency or, just the type of work that we do.
And one of the great things about, so an example of our fractional CFO, he's worked with other contingency fee law firms. He sort of knows industry norms. Like we are concerned about the percentage of our revenue that goes to our labor costs. So the question then becomes as a percentage, are our labor costs too high? I really don't know what the norm is. Because I have no reference point. All I know is what our firm does. And bringing in an outside CFO that can actually look at this and has experience, he's seen, numerous other businesses and numerous other law firms. So he has some benchmarks and some reference points to work with that we would never know if we hadn't have brought this person on. So from a practical reality is, we meet with our fractional CFO every
other week for about
every
an
other
hour.
week for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and he gives us homework, and then we give him things, and he looks at them when we're not together, and we kind of converse, and we kind of tackle it problem by problem or issue by issue.
Yeah, we're starting with the foundation, right?
Yeah.
Like we're really not building our books from the ground up, but we kind of are especially for this next level of growth. And I think that's one of the things that he's given, hopefully both of us, some peace of mind on, is that, it's okay. If you're in growth mode, maybe cash flow isn't what it was, but just recognize that that's okay. That was for me, just having someone with his expertise say, hey, cash flow, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm really interested to see where this goes. We're in the beginning of this journey, so we'll report back in subsequent podcasts about how this is going. So what are the other types of experts that we could bring in?
Yeah, I don't know what a fractional CMO does.
So we have never hired a fractional CMO. I've looked at it, and I know that several firms, several friends of mine have done it. And the way they've explained it to me, it is a, kind of the same thing. It's like they will look at the inner workings of your marketing department and see how it is running and compare it to a baseline of how other firms in your same industry are doing. You know, what is the percent of revenue that you're spending on marketing relative to maybe another contingency fee law firm? You know, what is your marketing mix? I think other metrics I've heard are something is, what is your cost per case per marketing channel? Say, what is your cost per case on cases acquired through television, or what is your cost per case on cases acquired through digital marketing and things of that nature? And they have some benchmarks that they know are sort of the industry standard, and they don't run your marketing department for you, but they kind of give you some guidance into things that look like they may be working, or some help in solving problems in areas that may not work so well.
And I think that's a good point, though. Like all chief officers, they're not your day-to-day persons. Fractional CFO is not doing the bank downloads. He's not negotiating, even right now at this point, any banking relationships or anything like that. They're very big picture, strategy, industry type, those things. He's kind of really doing a good audit of our books to help us kind of get to that next level.
And what I really like about the fractional concept, it's easy in, easy out. So it's relatively easy to begin the relationship. It's not like you have to go through the massive hiring process.
Yeah.
You know, when I hired you, we went through 6 interviews over just weeks and weeks,
Hours.
and it was painful.
Lots of tests.
And it was just it was like a big leap of faith when you're bringing on and giving the keys to the kingdom to somebody that you've never met before. It was a big leap of faith on my part. And you know, it's also, let's say that the relationship between you and I didn't work out. It would be kind of messy to get out of that. I mean, I'd have to, let you go, and then that's a whole process, and that's a thing. Whereas with a fractional type employee, it's easy to jump in, and it's easy to jump out. Right. You know, if it's not working, if you're not liking, you can easily end the representation. No harm, no foul. You know, no EEOC issues, nothing like that you have to worry about, and you could try again with somebody else the next week. So that's kind of what I like about it. You're not risking a whole lot by getting involved in a fractional type relationship. Now there's the second part that we kind of wanted to talk about, which was
what you just alluded to, the hiring of a COO. That's the ultimate, I think, who not how that we've done in this firm.
Right.
What led up to that decision?
It was funny. So it was right. I'd been thinking about hiring a full-time COO for a couple of years, and I was talking with, my friends at Atticus. I was talking with my coach, Nora, at the time, and I was like, there's so many operational issues that are going on that basically what they were doing, they were falling to me, and I was basically sloughing them off on my lawyers, and that's not what we're trained to do. We're not trained to deal with operations. So it was clear to me that we needed some direction. I actually considered a fractional COO, and I quickly dismissed it because I realized this was a full-time job. It needed to be done.
It's so funny. So there's actually a group, a business of just fractional COOs for law firms, and I was looking into that before I took this job.
Yeah. And it may be a good solution for some people, but of a firm of our size, I was like, this is an area that we just need to jump in full bore. So
right.
Now I wasn't going to hire just anybody. So I was very serious about going through the vetting process, because really you are really giving the keys to the kingdom when you're handing over the operations of the firm by somebody, like somebody I did not know. But I felt it was important enough to do it. And I realized if there was ever a who, not how moment, I mean, I don't need to be running the day-to-day operations of the firm.
Yeah. Well, and your attorneys didn't need to be doing all the hiring, and I don't know who was even doing the IT setup back then.
It was a big group think. I mean, it was like every time there was a crisis or an issue, it was all the attorneys got together and we thought about it and we angsted over it. And there was no process for decision making. It was just a whim at the moment.
Well, and then when we moved to EOS, that made it a lot more clear as to why you needed a COO. And most law firms now, it's a very popular role in law firms before treating the law firm like it's a business, with the institution of this position of the COO, or I think I've seen them called firm managers. Even sometimes a managing partner has kind of that COO day-to-day role. And I think it's important to note that my role here has changed at the longer that I've been here. I'm coming up on 4 years. And so it's not like, I was handed the keys to the kingdom on the first day. I don't think that I was.
Which is funny because that was my interview question for you. Yeah. It's like, if I handed the keys to the kingdom to you on the first day and I left for 6 weeks, what would you do?
What'd I say? I got hired, Sullivan.
You were flabbergasted by it.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, that was your basic question. Why the hell would you do that? That was your answer. And I'm like, well, that's a pretty good answer.
But also, I think I actually said, keep the boat steady, right? Like, let's just that was one of the things. I didn't make any changes for a very long time. I just absorbed all the information. And I think that was one of the things that really kind of helped make me more successful in the firm than
all right.
Otherwise.
So for the listener, for the classic who, not how, just a moment, just in 30 seconds or less, what is it that you do for me?
Day-to-day operations. I would say the case management software, so Litify is my big. No, I would actually say all key relationships. So whether that's Litify, our PEO, or IT, MSP, all those.
I don't even know what those words mean.
Well, that's why I do it and you don't. So anything shared services, I handle.
What's a PSP? Also, I don't even know what that is.
That's not the one. Yep. So you just keep trusting me.
Okay, I'll trust you.
Also, strategy execution, so big projects, which is really important, I think, when you want to grow as fast as you do. So you have all these ideas, and they land on my desk, and then that's our job to negotiate when they're going to happen. But they go somewhere.
Or you tell me that's a dumb idea.
Sometimes I'm just like, maybe we reconsider that. I don't think I say dumb.
You said it at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair. That one's true. But I try just to kind of push you off. So I think that growth, strategy, execution, that's what I do all day. Problem solving. That's the third thing. There's problem solving, whether that's which AC vendor are we going to use, or, how do we grow and scale correctly?
Yeah.
So, and I think that we actually found, I think this is the third thing that you want to talk about, was that we found our current fractional CFO at a conference, but not necessarily through the conference.
So that's the thing, is where do you find these things? Yeah. Where do you find these people? So first of all, where do you even get the idea? So I will say that I had never heard of a fractional CFO until it became a topic of conversation repeatedly at different events that I go to. I mean, we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast before, Atticus and PILMA and AAJ and TTLA and all the things that we go to on a regular basis. I mean, I go to probably at least one conference a month, if not two. I expose myself to other people's experiences. I expose myself to other people's, how they solve their problems, what problems do they have, whos are they going to.
Exactly.
So I never even heard of the concept of a fractional CFO, or I'd certainly had not heard of a fractional CMO until I remember specifically I was at Atticus and Craig Goldenfarb was talking about it. Didn't even know that these were things. And I started asking questions like, well, what is that? What do they do? How much do they cost? Where would you find such a person? Everybody that we have hired in these fractional roles, or what I'll call expert roles, typically have been referrals from people who are already using them. Mm-hmm. So our fractional CFO came through Tom Tona. Mm-hmm. I was at a conference with him in New Orleans. We were sitting around it wasn't from the stage. I was literally just sitting with Tom at dinner, and we were deciding, what wine to order for dinner. And he starts talking about this fractional CFO. This
whole thing, yeah.
And all of a sudden, and we'd already been vetting one. We'd already been vetting, but we were not satisfied with what we had seen. And he goes, you want to talk to this guy? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll talk to him. And it blossomed from there. I guess my point would be is number one, you don't know what you don't know. So you got to get out there. You got to network. You got to talk with other people, other like-minded law firm owners to see how they're running their business. And all of a sudden you will find all sorts of great ideas and great resources that you didn't even know were a thing.
Well, I think that's the ultimate who, not how, right? Is the power of the community to help you find, like, this is my problem, but what are you guys doing to help address it? I think that, the Pilma listserv is a great example of that. I need either referral or how are you guys handling this particular difficult election season within your firm? I think that's the ultimate who, not how, is to do that. But, you found me through, I was just a cold call. I was just a resume on a...
Well, not exactly. So what happened is we used to use a different PEO. I'll name them, since we used to use Insperity. And they basically handle payroll. They do outsourced HR stuff, but they also had a headhunter service. Mm-hmm. And here's what actually happened. They were trying to recruit me to use them full time as their headhunter, and so they offered me one freebie.
I was your freebie.
You were the freebie.
Yeah. Hey, you got a good return on your investment.
I got a good return on that investment. Yeah. So you were the freebie. And the funny thing is they sent me a ton of resumes, but you were actually the very first resume that they sent me.
Oh, I didn't know that part of the story.
You were the very first resume I got. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I like her. And let's interview her. And then all these other resumes came in, and there was a couple of more that I liked. And I said, all right, we're but then all of these other ones, what I figured is they send the best ones first, and then they just start sending, the quality went down dramatically.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, but that was, another classic who, not how moment.
Yeah, if you went
How do I find this person?
You went to your PEO. That's a great point. And I think just as important in your network is what I've heard recently called the no-fly list, the people who you don't want to maybe bring on.
Absolutely. So you not only do you within the network you find who to use, you find who not to use.
And I think that's just as important because you're taking a huge leap of faith, like we've talked about already, to bring someone into your baby, like for all of the entrepreneurs out there. The no-fly list is as important as the go talk to this person list.
And that's one of the great things about some of the listservs. We're on the Pilma listserv, I'm on a couple of other listservs, is like you can vet candidates by just posting them on the listserv. Hey, has anybody ever worked with this particular person? Lawyers have done this for years with experts. When we hire experts for our litigation cases, mm-hmm. we'll like, hey, has anybody used this orthopedic as a testifying expert before? Yes, no, maybe. And you'll get a ton of people out there that will give you an opinion one way or the other. We're used to that, but then somehow we just don't use it the same for business the way we probably should. Although I think lately we have.
Absolutely.
Seen a lot of activity on the listservs lately. People wanting to vet different business vendors, different consultants, all kind of stuff. So I think it's becoming more the norm.
Yep. So I think we're ready for our next break. And in our next segment, we're going to talk about why this concept didn't land with me. Can I say that?
I'm really curious about this. So yes, this will be a good closing segment.
Awesome.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister Podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze. A little bit specifically about the book Who Not How, The Formula to Achieve Bigger Goals Through Accelerating, which was an assigned book through Atticus. So the book itself is a classic Who Not How. So Dan Sullivan is a consultant. He's a crusty old soul. He's been, I don't know how old he is. He's got to be in his 70s or 80s by now. He's been around forever.
Mark meant no offense by calling him crusty.
No offense by that, by crusty old soul. It's purely a reference to my uncle, who I love dearly.
All due respect.
So, but Dan got Benjamin Hardy to write this book for him. Not only has he written this book for him, he's written probably 4 or 5 books that I've...
For Dan?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So Benjamin is the who in the relationship?
So Benjamin Hardy is the who in the relationship. Mm-hmm. So what he basically does is he interviews Dan Sullivan and uses that as the basis of a book that they are listed as co-authors of, although Dan doesn't write a single word of the book. I will say I learned this trick a long time ago because I have a few books that I have authored. And my trick is simply to create a very detailed outline. And then I have a writer that has been with me for years. And then she will come back with a text. And then I will sit down and edit it. And then I will send it back to her. And then, ultimately we end up with a book that I will give myself 30% credit.
Yeah.
I probably wrote about 30% of it. My idea, my outline, but she did the heavy lifting. Otherwise, I would have never gotten the thing written.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not the best use of your time to write a book.
No, it is not. It is not. We've done the same thing with several white papers that we have published. I come up with the idea, I'll come up with the outline, I come up with some good research, and then send it off. And then 6 weeks later, we have a product. So it is kind of that it's me ripping off Dan Sullivan, basically. You said earlier that the book itself, not the concept, but the book itself didn't necessarily land with you. Explain what you meant by that.
Well, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious, but that you don't is kind of interesting. I am the who. So the book doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, I'm always going to be the who, right? You come up with these when we go to conferences. Like, that's a great idea, Diana. What are you going to do about it? Like, how many times have you said that to me?
It would probably require a calculator to figure out.
Exactly. So when you say who, I mean, it's in the Atticus, for example, very specifically makes us do a project pitch. That's a big thing, the project pitch tool.
Explain what a project pitch is.
I'm going to toss that one back to you. Project pitch is a one-page tool that Atticus came up with.
The whole point of a project pitch is that you're trying to convince somebody or a team to do something, but you're having to pitch it to them in a way so they will have buy-in, so they will see
that's in it for them.
That's in it for them. Why should they care?
So you're fleshing out an idea.
Yeah, you're fleshing out an idea. So that's the idea behind a project pitch.
And what's that very last line there at the bottom?
That they need to have buy-in.
No, it's called the project leader.
Oh,
and so
yes.
Every time there's a project pitch of some sort, a project leader inevitably becomes Diana. We actually just yesterday, listeners, finished our quarterly pulse, our EOS quarterly pulse, which is our EOS. With EOS speak, it's the quarterly meeting that we have with our implementer.
Right.
It was our first one.
EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yep.
This is the program that we use, which is based off the book Traction. So we can't assume that people have listened to all other podcasts.
You're right. Sorry, guys. But it's our quarterly meeting with our implementer where we decide what our next 90-day initiatives or rocks, if you're using EOS speak, are going to be. And we decide on them as a team. And we decide on what the rocks, what the initiative is going to be, and who's going to own it. And what did you literally just say to me before we started recording and started even getting into the podcast?
What I said, my complaint was that, Diana, you have too many rocks. Too many rocks got assigned to you out of yesterday's meeting.
And what did I say back?
Who else is going to do it?
Exactly. So this is my thing with the book. Like, it's so very obvious. Yes, of course. But the who is always me. But that's where I land in the org chart. That's where I land in the accountability chart if we're using EOS speak. And so I think that the key thing that some of our listeners needs to remember is that, especially if you're Marc 25 years ago, where you're trying to either decide if am I going to spend my hours reading a book on how to build a website, or if I'm going to try and maybe promote someone from within to help me build a website because they have an interest in website building. What we see,
with that. It was hiring somebody that knew what the hell we were doing.
I guess the more direct parallel, fair enough. The most direct parallel is that what we see with a lot, especially our Atticusans, is that they hire, they promote from within to that firm manager or that team leader or that kind of maybe COO role. And you've got a paralegal, usually someone who's been there for a very long time, who maybe wants to take a step out of that paralegal day-to-day role. And so the key thing that I think that our listeners should remember is that when you do have that paralegal that's maybe elevating in from within, that they're probably still carrying a caseload. So when you say who and you point that finger, who, not how, that they have other responsibilities. The idea doesn't mean that the idea isn't great. It doesn't mean that you're not going to do anything with it. It's just that if everything's important, nothing's important. And so I just keep that as a cautionary tool that I am the who.
Right. Let's solve this problem real quickly. So you are my who.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who is your who?
That we don't have on it. I guess that's the other part.
So this is the The question, exactly when in our evolution does Diana get a who?
That's a great question. And when I have the answer for that, I will let you guys know. I will be shouting from the rooftop. But, it's definitely not in the 24 plan. We know we're going to start our 25 plan very soon, and maybe it's in there. But, an assistant, a director of operations, or an assistant just is not in the plan.
So going back to the concepts that we talked earlier about fractional help, part-time help, for that matter, that would be one of my kind of suggestions back to you when you're looking for your who. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a totally new hire, or it doesn't have to be somebody that's already within the firm. Maybe it could be, something that we farm out to a vendor. And we do that from time to time.
And great vendors, guys, our IT MSP, they're so great. They literally will get mad at me when they see me crawling around trying to hook up a new computer. And I can't say enough about our team. Today, right this minute, she's our producer, but she's also our marketing manager. She's also, when I'm out, IT. And then when, she helps plan our firm culture events. And then, our director of first impressions, Cindy, she just is amazing. So she also we pull a lot of help from where we can from within the team. But the understanding always that they have a primary responsibility, and as just teamwork, one of our core values, and I think our team does a great job of.
All right, so in wrap up, we've looked at the book Who Not How. I like the book, the general concept. It was mostly a motivational book, a mindset type book. And of course, it's perfect for me because, I'm the one with the index finger that's pointing, and it's a skill that I've developed really well over the years. You, on the other hand, being the other end of that finger, it may not land quite as well for you. But I think overall, the general concept and the general principles are what we really want to focus on, which is always be looking for the person best suited for the task that can do it quickly, efficiently, and as cheaply as possible.
No, absolutely. And the next time you find yourself saying, oh man, I can't do this. It's a great idea, but I can't do it. Maybe then the next question should be who can get it done.
All right. So we're about out of time. Any final comments before we check out of here?
Nope, I got nothing.
All right. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. Remember to rate and review us. And if you enjoy this podcast, tell your friends about it. And come look us up at thesuccessfulbarrister.com, or come look us up, our law firm and the sponsor of this podcast. Look us up at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.